This is a tale of a clown named Wacky Mole. Wacky Mole lives in an establishment called Wacky's Wonders with its clown cohorts Hugs, Swirls, Uncle Charlie, Crouchy, and no others. It was a happy life for Wacky and the other clowns. That was until suddenly Wacky gets a letter from his friend Old Dirty. He reads the letter and gasps. His friends write that the Great War is over and that he must report for duty immediately. Uncle Charlie asks, "What is it, Wacky?" Wacky says, "I don't want to go to war." Uncle Charlie says, "Well, it's your country's time now. Don't you want to protect the little lady?" "I don't want to go to war, Charlie. Not again." Uncle Charlie sighs and says, "I know, kid. I don't want to fight either. That's why I'm sending you to France to enlist. Don't worry, it'll be fun." Wacky cries because he doesn't want to go to France. Uncle Charlie gives him a big hug and tells him he will write to him every week. He says, "It'll be fun, you'll see." Wacky Mole is shipped off to France in a wooden crate the next day. Wacky's packed and ready. He has a ham and a sack of bread to eat on the trip. He also has a little drawing of his sister to hold in his hands. Wacky's sister's name is Rose. His uncle has told him that if he got scared on the trip, he can always look at Rose. Wacky has a big smile on his face, and he's ready to go. Wacky arrives in France and is met at the train station by a group of soldiers. They march him to a big truck with a jeep escort. He rides in the truck to the airfield. "Where are all the clowns here in France?" Wacky asks. He's told that they're at a big military base called Happy Landings. Wacky arrives at Happy Landings and is met by a group of clowns wearing funny red, white, and blue outfits. They ask him what unit he wants to join. He chooses the Funny Cuffs. Wacky introduces himself to the Funny Cuffs and is assigned to work in the kitchen. He meets the other clowns, including Wacky Mole 2, Swirls, and Slippers. Wacky talks to Slippers and he finds out that he used to live in a little village in France. He says that the villagers there still talk about the great times he had at the local tavern. Wacky's impressed by how much Slippers drinks. Wacky remembers that Uncle Charlie said that you would need to drink to become clowns. Wacky drinks a lot too. Wacky drinks with Slippers and Swirls and he finds out that it is easy to make friends with them. He learns that Wacky Mole 2 likes to eat worms, and Slippers likes to eat watermelon seeds. Wacky eats worms and he feels like the funniest clown in the army. He finds out that clowns don't have to work very hard. They are all given free time to run around and have a good time. Wacky decides to visit the Eiffel Tower and he has the best time of his life. He dances with the pretty French girls and he drinks wine and beer with his friends. It was the trip of a lifetime. Uncle Charlie comes to visit him at Happy Landings and he tells him all about it. He smiles and said, "That was great, kid. I'm proud of you." Wacky finishes the war and returns home to the United States a hero. Wacky tells the rest of the Funny Cuffs about how he had a great time in France and how the French girls were pretty. He even shows them a little picture of Rose. Wacky goes to bed and wakes up the next morning and goes to his first day of classes at Clown College. He shows up early to his first period class, which was called Introduction to the Dark Arts. His teacher was a large, round, scary-looking man with a long gray beard. The teacher asked the class, "Who here wants to learn how to become a wizard?" Wacky raises his hand and he asks the teacher, "Do you mean clowns?" The teacher says, "Yes, clowns are wizards in disguise." Wacky can hardly contain his excitement. "Please, teacher, I want to be a clown wizard so bad I would even join the circus to do it. You do not know how badly I need this. Please." The teacher says that he will help Wacky. "I will teach you the basics," the teacher said. Wacky thanks the teacher profusely, and he thinks that clowning might just be easier than wizarding. But his dreams of being a wizard clown were soon to be shattered, because just then the school's most frightening creature came storming through the front door. It was a large, obese, purple-faced, heavily bearded man. He glared at the class and shouted, "My name is Merlin, and I'm here to put a stop to this nonsense once and for all." The teacher stood up and faced Merlin. "You can't come in here," he shouted. You're banned from the school. The wizard clown teacher started fighting Merlin years ago, and he's been banned from the circus ever since. Merlin roared and started to pound on the teacher's desk. He started it. I didn't. I never hit anyone in my life. Wacky starts to get really pissed off at the situation. He really wants to learn dark clown magic, but this asshole Merlin is going to make him go sicko mode. He can hardly control his anger. He starts to yell at him, and it goes for Merlin's throat. Wacky pulls out his beloved hammer, and he starts to pound on Merlin's large, obese, purple face. He caves in Merlin's face, leaving him looking like a satellite dish. Merlin screams at the top of his lungs, "Wizard clown, asshole!" The teacher looks scared out of his mind, and he runs out of the classroom, leaving Wacky all alone with Merlin. The teacher dismisses class as he runs out of the room. "That was a good one," Merlin says to Wacky with a grin. Wacky beats Merlin to death with his gigantic clown hammer and watches his blood spatter everywhere. He thinks that perhaps this clown magic is harder than wizarding, but he's determined to master it. Wacky runs to his second period class and sits in the back of the room with his new friends, whose names are Brutus the Tiger and Short Round. They tell him all about the adventures they had at the circus. They tell him that they were both part of the acrobatic team, the Three Stooges. "The Three Stooges? What are you guys talking about?" Wacky asks. Brutus the Tiger and Short Round tell him all about the Three Stooges. They tell Wacky that the Three Stooges are famous throughout the world for their unique slapstick comedy style. The second period class teacher is giving an introduction to the class. She tells the class that today she is going to teach everyone how to fly a chariot. Wacky raises his hand eagerly. "Do chariots really fly, Miss Teacher?" The teacher says, "Yes, they do indeed." Wacky makes a pog face. "Are you dead ass?" The teacher says, "I am always serious." Wacky makes a pog face again. He eagerly awaits instructions. "Well, first you will need to find a chariot," the teacher says, "and then you will need to find a stable." Wacky finds a stable next to his desk. It looks like it might be a good place to begin, but he has some thinking to do. He has some questions. "What do we do now, Miss Teacher?" The teacher says, "Well, first you'll need to think about what type of chariot you want. There are many different types of chariots to choose from. The most popular is Hippogriff." Wacky immediately chooses the Hippogriff chariot before the teacher is even done talking, and the teacher says that he will need to find a stable to practice in. "What stable?" he asks. The teacher says, "The one right next to you there, silly boy," pointing to the stable right next to his desk. He looks at the stable. It looks big enough to hold a hippogriff. The teacher looks at Wacky and asks, "Are you ready?" "Yes, Miss Teacher, I'm ready to fly." The teacher claps her hands and says, "Let us begin." She takes Wacky's hands and says, "Close your eyes." The teacher covers Wacky's eyes and the world goes dark. He screams and cries for help and tries to pry himself out of the teacher's grip. The teacher says, "If you don't shut up, I will let you go." The class watches in horror as Wacky struggles to get away from the evil teacher. The teacher releases her hand and he hits the ground and his eyes open. He's lying on the cold floor in front of his desk, sobbing and crying for help. He runs to the bathroom to cry. "Stop crying," Miss Jones screams. "Stop crying. I'll not have crying in my class." "I just wanted to learn to fly," Wacky cries. "Well, you are not learning anything right now," she yells. Miss Jones drags Wacky by the ear back to her classroom. She begins the lesson again. "Close your eyes," she screams. "No, Miss Jones, I don't want to," Wacky yells. "Close them, or else you will not learn anything today." Wacky reluctantly closes his eyes. He hears Miss Jones clapping her hands again. "I trust you have learned your lessons well," she says. "When do I start flying?" "Now," she screams. "Open your eyes and start flying." Wacky opens his eyes and he can see the stable right in front of him. He is shocked as he sees he is levitating 6 feet above the ground. The hippogriff is standing next to him, and the teacher is floating next to him. "You can fly," the hippogriff says. "Well, mostly." "What did you say to me, hypocrite?" Wacky retorts. The hippogriff looks at him and says, "You heard me, short stuff." Wacky gets really angry and pulls out his hammer to bash the hippogriff's brains in. The hippogriff screams, "You hit me first." "That's not how flying works," the teacher says. "Heel, boy." The hippogriff hops on the ground. Wacky beats the hippogriff to death for shit-talking him. The teacher applauds. "Very good, class," she says. Wacky turns around and looks at the teacher. She looks proud of him. The bell rings for Wacky's third period class, which is drama. "Class dismissed," she says. "Go learn something." Wacky runs to his drama class. The teacher is waiting for him in the doorway of the classroom. "Hey," she says, "where have you been? I've not seen you all day." Wacky tells her the whole story. "I knew you could do it." Wacky gets ready to start drama class. "We have a new student," the drama teacher says. "Have a seat. We will start with the basics." The drama teacher introduces herself, and Wacky tells her the whole story of how he became a clown magician. "So what do you think?" she asks. "Do you want to try out for the play?" "Yes, yes, please," Wacky excitedly replies. "Great," the drama teacher says. "I will help you get ready. Let us go." The drama teacher leads him to a room that is filled with pots and pans and costumes. "Put this on." "Hey, what is this play about anyway?" "It is about the story of Romeo and Juliet," the drama teacher says. "It will be a lot of fun." Wacky puts on the costume. "Now, who is playing Romeo and who is playing Juliet?" "You will be playing Romeo," the teacher says, "and Carter will be playing Juliet." The drama teacher laughs and says, "We will have some surprises." Wacky groans. "Can we do a good play instead? Maybe something not by Shakespeare?" "It is not up to me," the drama teacher says. "We have to follow the script. Now get in there and let us get started." The rehearsals are fun, but Wacky still gets nervous when he's on the stage and in front of people. He sees Uncle Charlie in the audience cheering him on, which makes him feel better. The school plays in 2 weeks. What will Wacky do if he doesn't make the play? Probably cry. Wacky heads to his next class, clown math. "I will kill you," the clown says. "You will die." "I will run over you," the little girl says. "You will die." Wacky runs away from clown math and goes to clown English instead. Mr. Clown is teaching clownish phrases to the class, such as ni, lo, and ha. "Good day, students," Mr. Clown says. Wacky sits down and prepares to learn clown English. "Clown English is very important," Mr. Clown says. "You clowns must be able to speak with clarity and wit." Mr. Clown assigns the class into partners to practice speaking clown English with. Wacky is paired up with little Sally. "Hello, Sally." Wacky says, "I am sorry, but I must go now. My partner, Carter, is waiting for me over there." He tries to leave, but Sally doesn't let him. The stress is really starting to make him go crazy again. "I'm sorry, but I must go," he says. "My partner, Carter, is waiting for me over there." "I'm sorry," Sally says. "Can I leave now?" "No," she says. "I'm not finished with you yet." "I'm sorry, but I really must go." "I'm sorry," Sally says. Wacky takes out his hammer and starts threatening Sally. "How about now? Can I leave? Say no and I will wallop your skull in with my hammer." "All right," Sally says. "I will say no." True to his word, Wacky started to wallop Sally's skull in with his hammer. "Ow, that hurt my hand," Sally yells. "Hey, stop that." Wacky kept beating Sally with the hammer until she was nothing but a brown stain on the carpet. Mr. Clown is really getting to Wacky. He tells Wacky that he has a very strong voice. "Thank you, Mr. Clown. I'm very proud of it." "You're welcome, student," Mr. Clown says. "Now, let's continue." The rest of the school day goes by slowly. The night before the big play, Wacky finds it hard to sleep. Uncle Charlie notices Wacky's nervousness and offers him a sleeping pill to calm him down. "I don't want to take a sleeping pill," Wacky says. "I want to be awake for the big play." Uncle Charlie sighs and offers Wacky some weed instead. "Here, take this. It'll make you feel great." Wacky accepts the offer, and soon is feeling less nervous about the play. He shows up to the play incredibly high. The big day has come. The stage is set. The audience is ready. Will Wacky make it through the play? He gives a truly wacky and energetic performance. He's nervous during the big kissing scene between him and Carter, but he gets through it. The play is a success. When the play is over, Wacky runs to the front of the stage and gives a big hug to Uncle Charlie. Thank you for the weed, Uncle Charlie. It made everything so much better. It got me real high. You are most welcome, my little student, Uncle Charlie says. But I have some bad news. I just found out it was laced with fentanyl. You're gonna die in a week. I'm sorry, Wacky. You must be fucking shitting me, Wacky yells. I'm gonna fucking live forever. You must be fucking high or something. Uncle Charlie sighs and soberly tells him, I wish I was shitting you, Wacky. I'm so sorry. I promise to make this week the best of your life. I promise. Wacky's going to die in a week. There's nothing he can do to stop it. There's nothing he can do to change it. There's nothing he can do to prepare for it. Wacky goes through the 5 stages of grief. Denial is the first stage of grief. He denies the news and tells himself that Uncle Charlie is just trying to scare him. He can't accept it. Wacky cries as Uncle Charlie tries to console him. Why can't this nightmare be over already? Wacky spends the rest of the week in his house. He cries himself to sleep many nights. The other clowns try to make him feel better, but he doesn't want to talk to anyone. He smokes a big cigar, but not even that makes him feel any better. A week later, Uncle Charlie comes to Wacky with some bad news. Wacky, he says, your funeral is tomorrow. We found your body in the river the next day. What do you mean, Charlie? I'm still alive. Sorry, Wacky, Charlie says, but it's too late. You don't have a body. You died from an overdose of fentanyl in your weed. Wacky screams as he tries to get up. What is going on? Am I going crazy again? No, you're not going crazy, Wacky, Charlie says. What's happening, Charlie? Please, help me. I'm sorry, Wacky, Charlie says. Help me, Charlie, please. I'm sorry, Wacky. I'm afraid you're stuck here until the afterlife. Until you figure out how to get to heaven. I wish I could help you. Being stuck in purgatory makes me crazy. It makes me want to pummel things with my hammer again. I think I'm going crazy again. I'm sorry, Wacky, Charlie says, but the rules of purgatory are set in stone. There's nothing I can do to help you. Charlie fades from view. Wacky cries as the day goes by. He starts pummeling everything in his sight with his gigantic hammer. He smashes a hole in the floor. He pummels the schoolhouse door. He pummels the library door. And Wacky escapes purgatory. Wacky is a free spirit now. He goes on to have a happy afterlife, full of weed and candy. Wacky died of a heart attack on stage during his final performance. Uncle Charlie runs up on stage to check his vitals. He was the first to break the news to his clown family. Wacky's dead! Wacky's dead! Wacky's dead! The end. You got a 100% on your test.